you just leave it roll. You just leave it roll. And I've titled this Deity, but I don't know. I don't know. One of the interesting things is that, Christianity is, the oldest denomination, the oldest sect of Christianity is, of course, the Catholic Church. And that's because it could trace its roots to 2,000 years. Do you ever wonder why that is? Never thought about that. Why the Catholic Church, why Christianity has been around for 2,000 years. Ever wonder why? How has it managed to be around for 2,000 years? Let's not even consider all the crap and the baggage that's been lopped onto it. Just the religion itself. You ever wonder how it manages to stay around? Why it's been around for 2,000 years?
The message.
The message? Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, its impact on people's lives.
Its impact on people's lives. Okay.
And the heavy orthodoxy in the structure.
Orthodoxy and structure. Here we go with that structure again. Good point. But if it's been around for 2,000 years, the only way it could have managed that is because it's changed from its conception to where it's at now. This is not the same as this. And I can tell you that with confidence because I did the research. But that's not the point here. The idea here is that it experiences change, which is something we all must do. And what is the main textbook of Christianity? The Bible. And what has happened with the Bible?
It's getting rewritten.
It keeps getting rewritten. Exactly. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And I want you to keep in mind that I'm not here to convert or change your mind or anything. I'm here to suggest possibly some, my computer program told me to use the word innovative thinking. And innovative sounds really good. So when we look at the Gospel of Luke, chapter 17, beginning with verse 20, this is about the Pharisees. And the Pharisees demand of Jesus, when will the kingdom of God come? And he tells them, you will not see the kingdom, for it is not here or there. Now, Bible rewritten numerous times, and if it's rewritten, it's been reinterpreted. Same story. And Jesus' reply was that the kingdom is among you. Now, among and within. What are your thoughts about that? Does that mean the same thing?
No, among to me implies more external. Around, you're surrounded by, where within is internal.
So words matter. When you change the words, you change the implied meaning. I'm not going to say you change the meaning, but you change the implied meaning, because technically they both mean the same thing. One is more arcane than the other. So, with this in mind, I've got a little question here that I put in there. So, if the kingdom is within, How did it get there?
Born.
We're born with it?
Mhm.
Okay. How did it get there?
Well, well, that's our divine souls. Right.
Okay, it's our divine soul. How did it get there? How did it get here? How did it get within? Now everybody's thinking, what the hell is the matter with him? What do you mean? How did it get within? It tells us how the soul got within us. Believe it or not, it's in the Bible. Where would you look for it?
No clue. Not the Old Testament.
Definitely the Old Testament.
It is the Old Testament?
I want to take you to the beginning. And I want to introduce you to a different perspective. And obviously, the beginning is Genesis. And it opens up with the divine created the heavens and the earth, meaning that the divine created corporeality and incorporeality, or matter and souls. And it tells us that there was darkness. And you know what darkness is?
Absence of light.
Okay, darkness, the absence of light. That's the obvious one. What else?
Lack of knowledge.
Lack of knowledge. And so darkness is ignorance. So there was ignorance. And then the divine, being the soul, or the light, or the glory, moved across the waters. That should have everybody perplexed. The glory of the divine moved across the waters of life, causing life to stir within. So what are your thoughts?
Excuse me. Trying to visualize. Well, waters is supposed to be emotions, right? But I don't see how that kind of fits in.
Okay. Anybody else? Causing life to stir within. I believe that's how I put it. Yes. Across the waters of life, causing life to stir within. Where
Within what?
would life stir within?
Body. Human body. Womb. Yeah.
What?
The womb is water.
Yes. Yes. So Ray's over here perplexed.
Well, at that point in the Genesis,
Mhm.
there was no life, no corporal life. I mean, when it says causing it to stir, it's, to me, it's like the oneness is awakened and putting forth this creation. But I mean, said within the womb, it's not the womb of a woman, because there are no corporal beings at this point.
Okay.
I mean, there may be entities that are, you know, when you talk about beings and stirring, I always look at us as being an entity with a body, not a body with a soul. And it's the body that wears out and and gets replaced, but the entity is eternal.
Mhm.
So at the point at which you're talking about, I don't know that there are any corporal beings at that point in the evolutionary process, or the creation process. So life stirring within what? Within the womb, or is it within the one? The life is stirring within the one. And is this period, they talk about day and night, and the period of day is billions of years, and the period of night is contraction and billions of years. And so I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are in that story. I don't know where we are in the expansion process.
Anaximander, a Greek philosopher, associated the term infinity with the divine. He's the first one that I'm aware of to do that. And within spiritualism, we use the term infinite intelligence to represent God, mostly because when that was thought up, they were trying to disassociate themselves with Christianity because they disagreed with the teachings. So they went with the infinite intelligence. And Anaximander described infinity as being a beginning. So infinity would be a continuous beginning. So how many people are on this planet?
Too many.
Too many? Okay, we'll go with too many. That's a nice round number. And how many people will be on this planet tomorrow?
Too many.
Too many.
Less than today, maybe.
Less than today,
Maybe not.
maybe.
Maybe.
More than today,
Maybe more.
possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe the same. But think of all those beginnings. When we do message work and we stand up here and we're gazing, or when you are having a dream and you're given a baby, what does a baby represent? A new beginning. So how does a soul get within? Well, I have to be careful here because this can get very political very quickly. But at what point, where, I should say, not at what point, but where does the soul become within?
A lot of people want to know.
That's what a lot of people want to know. Yeah.
Isn't it on our way out of the birth canal?
Okay, on our way out of the birth canal. All right. Here's a little story for you. I was an assembler before I became this humble teacher here. And I'm at my table. I've got this long bench, and there's a woman next to me that I'm training. And she's distracting me. But what's distracting me is this glow, is what is distracting me. It's this glow. Ever notice how some pregnant women glow? There's a glow about them. And when the Bible writes about the glory of God, it's this bright light. When the glory rested on Jesus at his baptism, it was this light around Jesus. The soul is this light moving across the waters. Many beginnings, moving across the water, causing life to stir. That's probably my addition there. It's probably not in the Bible. But why else would light move across the water? Why else would the glory of God move across the water? Why else would a soul move across the water? Created in the image of God, remember? And what is God?
Infinite intelligence.
Infinite intelligence. Okay. A continuous beginning. What is the glory of God? Oh, did you forget already?
The light of God.
The light. Exactly. The light. And how are souls described?
It's light.
As light. It's just an idea. You don't have to accept it. You can sit back and say, he's really lost it today. And I won't feel bad. It's a new way of looking at it. I didn't come up with this until I looked at this. And I'll tell you how the story happened. Somebody called me and their attendance at their chapel was starting to drop off. Donations were starting to drop off. And I said, well, you know, that's interesting because I have only a handful of people, and yet we managed to keep our building open. And she said, how do you do that? And I said, well, are you producing value? Is what you're talking about is value? Well, I don't know. They want to know, they want us to teach the Bible. And I don't want to. I said, well, that's fine. Reinterpret it. Teach them something different. That's why I don't teach the Bible, because people have already got their ideas about the Bible. And when you start talking about the Bible, you've got these old ideas that you have to get through. And all these ideas are based on surface material. When they talk about the beginning of Genesis and there being darkness all about, they're literally saying there was darkness. They don't understand. But the language of the mystery schools is that darkness is ignorance. When we're in the dark, what's the cliche? When you're in the dark, what's it mean?
Clueless.
Clueless. You don't know. You're ignorant. This could be the very same thing. In the beginning, there was dark. Before we see the light, I know when it comes to me, before I see the light, before I understand, I'm pretty stupid. And then all of a sudden, what's the cliche with this light bulb that lights up? Yeah. And I'm not saying this is right. All I'm saying is think about it. Think about it. It just offers a new perspective. Because what I have found with these mystery schools and these mystery teachings, they use these great big words, these very deceptive words, and they make everything out to be such a grandiose event. And in the end, they're talking about something that's pretty basic, pretty normal, natural, but they put it in such a way that you have to think about it. And as you think about it, you see it from a different perspective. And that's what it's all about. When you read through a lot of that material, once you start understanding the language, boy, do your eyes open up. And like I said, I could be way off base, but it certainly sounds good. Any thoughts or questions here? I know I put something out there that's really profound. Okay. I was going to say way out there, but profound works. I like that term.
Well, I remember my grandmother always told me that the Bible could be interpreted in 7 different ways. 7 ways. And I don't know where the number 7 came, but I think 7 was a Christ number associated with Christ. Not sure exactly why, but
Everything is 7.
yeah.
When it
Everything-
comes to
yes.
mystical stuff,
Yes, that's
everything is 7. 7 days of the week,
right.
7 planets, you know, everything is 7.
So anyway, I always remembered that. Not that I could sit here and interpret it, but the one thing I tend to not do is ever take any of it literally. Because I know that that's the base. And so much of Christian religion today is the base to me. And so I have a real hard time with a lot of it because I don't feel like it. Now, I'm sure there are different degrees and elements of learning schools that are around, but the ones that make the most noise, scream the most, are the ones I've listened to the least. When, you know what I mean?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, me too. So, because they're so fighting for their whatever, they're just fighting.
Yeah.
So those are people I don't, and unfortunately, they're getting their hands in way too much power in America today. I don't mean to get political.
That's okay,
But-
I'll edit it out.
I want, yeah, okay, good. Edit it out, but that's kind of where I feel about it, so, but I like your interpretation. Because it certainly is, it certainly gives you a lot more to think about what the real meaning is. You know?
You started this with a question. When does the soul enter the body?
Mhm.
You never answered the question.
No, I didn't, but I did provide a starting point.
What do you view as the soul? What is the soul to you?
I've never really given that much thought.
It implies, by making this, it implies it is a part of you. Why aren't you a part of it?
Well, here's some interesting history with that. The early Egyptians saw the soul as being mind, that non-local aspect of us. And they saw the spirit as that which animates.
So there are two different things in their mind.
In their mind, exactly. And we can safely assume that that was the thought of the Mesopotamians as well. And we could safely assume that it was probably the same thing with the Orientals as well. Because the written language did not show up until after the Aryans migrated from Northern Europe into the southern areas of the globe, into Egypt and Mesopotamia. Well, Mesopotamia is it's the breadbasket. It extends from southern Turkey today all the way down to the coast. That's where you get the Tigris and the Euphrates. It extends all the way down there. And then you've got the Orientals on the other side. And this might be of interest for Ray here. I think it's anthropologists, and I could be wrong, could be archaeologists, but they have found evidence that connects Christianity or Judaism with early Hinduism. Because in the Vedas, a lot of what's in the Vedas is in the Bible as well, is in Gnosticism, is in a lot of other writings. And coming back to that, the soul, for me, I see the soul as all of this. As God, as Beth, as Ray, as that aspect that is interconnected. Scientists are beginning to to toy with the idea that the entire universe is light and that matter is nothing but an interference pattern, a different type of holograph. So it gives you a lot to think about. And for me, I go with the Egyptians. The soul and spirit are two different things. That's why when you hear me, I'm talking about souls. I don't talk about spirits, because spirit is breath. Spirit is life. And that's I think it's the second creation of man. This is the first creation. When you look at Genesis, there are two creations. This is the very beginning, but there are two creations of humankind. There is the matter, where we are formed with clay, and there is the incorporeal, or the soul, where it is breathed into us. That's why we have the argument of when life begins. Either it begins when matter begins to form, or it begins when you take your first breath. But the thing is, if you look at the higher teachings, life is life. Matter is simply another aspect of life. It's not when life begins or when life ends. It's when you decide to change your suit. Because life is eternal. If we hold to that, if we make that part of our belief system, then there is simply life. God, the divine, is not something that's out there. It's not something that's in here. It simply is. And we simply are. But that's really heavy and complex. So we're not going to go into that. And I try not to direct us in that. But that's how I see things. And I see things differently all the time. I'm putting together a book on the symbols in the tarot. And I get halfway through it and it's, Philip, the tarot is all about this whole idea of life. It's the principles of life. It's going through these symbolic deaths that we experience. A relationship that's no longer there. That's a symbolic death. We mourn it, we grieve it, we go through the same process. That's why death is considered a transition. And when we hit bottom, what is it that we have to do when we hit bottom? It's a symbolic death. And that's what they teach, this symbolic death. And it's all about letting go of this stuff they call of the world. And when you empty yourself of that, it's like going to recovery, addiction recovery or whatever. I know what it is, but I can't think of the term.
You're right.
But you go there to do what? To get rid of that habit. It's a symbolic death. When you are seeking the higher, what we call the higher teachings, you have to let go of the lower teachings. And it's not easy to change habits. And that's what it's about. It's about letting go of that stuff so you can be filled with something else. We call it the divine. Be filled with the divine light. But the thing is, the divine light never left. It's always been there. And you could say that this light moving across the water is just, and as it spins around, it's like weaving a web, weaving a garment. There are many ways to interpret that. And this is just something, an idea on how to interpret things differently. So, did that answer your question roundabout? I know sometimes I get long-winded.
I don't think you answered my question, that's all.
Okay, and the question was what I believe the soul to be.
Well, I think yes. One other point, when you give messages and you're communicating with a non-physical entity, you talked about spirit, which is life, and you talked about the soul. What is that entity? What survived death?
Well, essence.
That essence obviously can communicate because it's communicating with you.
Yes, and I happen to call that essence souls. And here's something else. If you can see it, it has substance. So the souls have substance. You can see it, it has substance. So I don't refer to souls as spirits, because spirit refers to a process, whereas a soul is simply is. The idea with this circle is no beginning and no end. It's imperceptible. Life simply is. And that's what confounds humanity, because in our conditioning, we're taught that there is a definite beginning and a definite end. That's why we call it birth and death. We cannot conceive of the possibility of it simply being. It just doesn't compute. It drives us nuts. But when this all first began, when we were crazy, we didn't question where life came from. We knew where life came from. It came from a woman. It simply is. How does it happen? Who cares? It simply is. That is the secret teaching. It simply is. Life simply is. God simply is. The divine simply is. Beth simply is. So she'll call herself Catherine or maybe George next time around, but it's still her. That's what they talk about with reincarnation. It's still you. No matter what body you're in, you're still you. The basic elements are there. What are those basic elements? I honestly could not tell you, but I can give you some good stories that'll make you think, which is all the fables are. All the writings of what is that, Asclepius, and the fables of Jesus. It's all stories to explain things. The Garden of Eden. That can be very interesting if you delve into it. Because as far as the Gnostics are concerned, the best thing that could happen to us was that we became conscious. And that's what the expulsion from the garden was about. We become conscious. Free will. And a majority of the contemporary religions don't like free will. It doesn't work. They see free will as being I don't want to say evil, but as being chaotic. They prefer something that has a beginning and an end. But in all actuality, it just doesn't work that way. Was that better?
I'll ponder.
So what are your thoughts?
On, well, I mean, I believe we always are. I believe that. What survives death, I honestly believe that I survived death, that I am not this, I survived death. And otherwise I can't, I mean, if you believe in reincarnation, you have to believe that you survive death because you live again in some other form. And I believe that. I think there's, like, are there a finite number of souls in the universe? At the point of coming from the darkness into light, were all souls created at the same time, and they are particles of the divine. Well, they are the divine, but in particle form. I mean, if people say that the population of the planet is increasing, and if all the people on the planet have souls, does that mean new souls are being created? I don't think so. I think that souls all were created in an instant at the point of creation. They just don't happen to incarnate all at the same time, which would imply that there is a finite number of entities in the universe. And they may not all be living on planet Earth either. So, I don't know. It's something I can't. If I were having a debate with a theologian, I can't justify my position. But that's what I believe.
That's okay. They can't justify theirs.
That's right, exactly.
And here's the interesting thing about infinity. Infinity does not mean never ending. Grains of sand on a beach, that's infinity. But it's not never ending, it's finite. It just means that it's incomprehensible to comprehend. It just means its number is incomprehensible. There, that's better. So that's what infinity actually means. Because if it meant something else, then it would not begin with, I don't know, it wouldn't end with finite, which is the beginning and an end. So what are your thoughts, Beth?
Sometimes things are just too profound to take root. So just put it in my subconscious and let it
Yeah,
simmer.
this is another one of those. So here's something interesting that I came across that I'm going to close with. In S.J. Loveland's, did I put it in here? No, I don't know. I guess I didn't. In a lecture, one of his lectures, he tells us that spiritualism has demonstrated no God, no deity, but has discovered the inner light emanates from us all. There's that point within a circle again. So, and I'm not saying that God does not exist, but I am suggesting that what we call soul is the glory of God. And we commune with that glory every time we say, Spirit told me, or Spirit led me. So I'm going to draw from, again, the Bible, the Gospel of John, and this is right around chapter 14, verse 7. This is where Jesus is speaking with his disciples before his arrest. And he says, if you have known me, you should also know my Father. And from now on, you know him and have seen me. Now, naturally, the disciples were perplexed. So later in verse 20, he says, know that I am in the Father, and you in me, and I in you. Therefore, as Jesus is the light, so can you become the light. But before we can become the light, we must be darkness. And I will say, thank you for allowing me to share that and to scramble your brains.
Record. No, down the bottom, the record.
Just go up there and hit the X, hit the box,
Or that.
click on the box.